Patrick Mahomes is basically God playing quarterback.
Chiefs Kingdom
live.
So on at it. What's hot? Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni.
Yeah, when it's grim, be the Grim Reaper and go get it.
It's Mahomes' house, and it is good. Woo! Arrowhead man. The Lombardi Trophy has a red and gold reflection. You gotta fight for your right to party.
Woo! Let's go!
Howdy, Chiefs Kingdom. It's Wednesday. It's 8:30. It's Chiefs Kingdom Live. Thank you so much for joining us. If you would, while you're here real quick, don't forget, click or tap that like, click or tap that subscribe. Tell some friends, tell some family members, tell some other Chiefs fans, help spread the word. We'd appreciate it. Got a good show for y'all tonight. It's one of our favorite episodes of the year that we do the schedule release breakdown. Schedule dropped just a little over an hour ago, although most of it was leaked out by the time I had lunch today. So we're gonna get in depth on that sucker. And so make sure you leave a comment and tell us what you think. Maybe if you have a question or you want to know our thoughts on a part of the schedule, throw those in the comments. Already got Brenda and John C checking in here. Good to see you all. Before we get into this, fellas, how we doing tonight? Bo?
Doing good. Been living out of a suitcase for 2 weeks, but doing really good, man. Really excited after today's schedule release. I feel like there's some really good points in there for us. Really tough points for us, but yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later. Doing good. Ready to get into my new house. This is not my new house. This is a small Airbnb. Ready to get my Chief stuff on the wall. Ready to start getting into all the good stuff that's, preseason workouts and everything here coming up soon. So yeah, I'm doing really good. How are you guys doing, Nick?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm officially old, as my daughter told me over the weekend. So I turned
Happy belated
on Friday. Had a party Saturday. Lainey, I see she's in the chat. Hope she's feeling up. She had a little bit of an accident at the party, but she's okay. So, hoping that you're doing well. But other than that, I'm good, man. Just excited to see the schedule drop. Excited to see a little bit of Twitter drama for the CKL account that from one of Scott's posts that we had. We might talk about here a little bit. But other than that, I'm good, man. How are you, Scotty?
Doing real well. Enjoying this nice, cool spring we're having here in Kansas City. Got a lot of rain and haven't really had any of these blazing hot early days. We didn't skip straight from winter to summer like it seems like we have here the last 4 or 5 years here in the heart of Chiefs Kingdom. But yeah, no, I'm doing good. It was good to see you there at the house on Saturday for the big 4-0 bash.
John C. No, man, we don't mention that.
Yeah, witness protection. They keep telling you probably shouldn't do a YouTube show when you're in witness protection, but
hey,
can't hold back.
It's government efficiency
in Arizona, right?
Right. Yeah, he just can't help himself. So
you see any red dots show up on Bo, just let him know so he can dodge it.
Right. Looks like we got Maria checking in now, and Lainey and Big Doug in the house. Good to see you all. Thanks for swinging in. You guys, the schedule dropped. Like I said, just a little over an hour ago. It's been leaked out over the last 2 or 3 or 4 days. It's one of the more interesting schedule constructions, I guess you could say, the Chiefs have had in the last handful of years with, where the bye is located and the way they crammed some of the days in there and the days of the week the Chiefs play on. So a lot to talk about there. It's good to see our man Kevin in the house. Good to see you. Thanks for coming by. I don't know. What do you guys want to get into? You guys just want to get into the schedule and start breaking it down?
I think that's why everybody's here, man. Yeah.
Let's not keep the people waiting. Don't bury the lead, right? Is that what they say in the industry, the professionals? So
yeah.
Chiefs 2024 schedule is out. All 17 games, 18 weeks. The road to the three-peat. We know what that looks like now. I think Nick's got it there for us on the graphic.
Hey, well,
Hope everybody can see that all right. didn't. I don't know. People are watching on their computers. It's a little hard to see on your phone, maybe, but
Yeah.
kind of just overall thoughts before we really start breaking down like game by game or stretches or what we think stands out the most. Just overall, I mean, do you think this is tough, fair, easy, middle of the road? What do you think, Nick?
I mean, I think it's middle of the road to tough opponent wise based on how teams performed last year. I think from a scheduling standpoint, it's extremely tough in some spots. And I think Brenda said, the biggest thing she hates is the early bye week, right? I mean, you look at the Chiefs have 12 games after their bye, which with like a older Travis Kelce on the team, may not be all that great, but yeah, I think overall it's a doable schedule, right? Look, it's one of those schedules that, when we get the three-peat, we're going to look back and be like, it wasn't a cakewalk, right? We didn't have a cakewalk schedule. We had a lot of good teams that we played. We had some really tough stretches where they, had all the games kind of jammed up together later in the year. We had an early bye, so we played a lot of games, consecutively towards the end there. I was pretty stoked to see that they did give us that second bye week in week 18 against the Broncos. That's really going to help, like with the playoff picture there. But other than that, like, it's going to be a tough road, man. What do you think, Bo?
That game's going to be for the division, Nick. What do you mean?
Oh yeah.
Remember they did that with the Chargers for like 3 straight years? They did that with the Chargers, like 2 or 3 out of the last 4 or 5 years. They played them like the last game of the year or something.
Right.
And Chiefs were resting starters at that point. So, Bo, overall thoughts about the schedule?
Dude, when I first looked at it, it reminded me of one of the convenience store burritos you get at 7-Eleven, and you put it in the microwave, and it's hot on both ends and then just cold in the middle, right? Just yeah. I mean, it's appetizing at first, and then you get to the end. Yeah, but I mean, not to repeat Nick's points too much. That week 6 bye stood out so much to me. Like, dang, that is early. But then the plus side is we have the Niners right after the bye, right? So, I mean, I love what we do after bye weeks. I love what Andy Reid does after bye week. So I was looking at that just like, okay, that's a great opponent to have off a bye week going into a softer part of the schedule. I like this schedule a lot better than last year's schedule in the sense that it's pretty much 2 on, 2 off as far as home and away. It kind of looks like, I mean, it's not exactly, but pretty much versus last year we had like 4 away games in a row or something like that. And it was just like, geez, that's brutal. Not really stoked on the last 3 out of the 4 games being away games, but it is what it is. To echo Nick's point, I think that's the way you want it, is you want to look back and be like, yeah, we took on the best and we beat the best. So let's go. I'm ready for it. What about you, Scott? How you feel about this?
Oh, I think overall it's a doable schedule. Being easier or softer towards the middle, like you said. It always kills me when people say, oh, microwaves heat from the inside out. I'm like, you've literally never cooked anything in a microwave if you say that. I don't know where that little bit of folklore or whatever you want to call that comes from, but heard it 100 times if you've heard it once. But yeah, it's a schedule, man. Every year you look at a schedule and you go, they host us here, and then you look at we got kind of a break here. So if you go by strength of schedule, it's one of the bottom half in the league for this coming season. Now that can be a little bit deceiving because teams jump up from year to year and kind of fall off. Like the Texans, no one expected the Texans to do what they did and win that division last year. So a lot of people would have marked like the Texans as a win last year, right? And that turned out to be a lot tougher than you thought. The Jets, everybody thought, they got Aaron Rodgers. That's going to be a tough game. They lose Aaron Rodgers in the first, series of the season. That game turns out to maybe not be as tough as you thought. So that's a hard game to play there. But, you're talking about NFC South teams in there. That was a weak division. And I don't see like what a lot of those teams have done to really make themselves that much stronger. So,
right. Yeah.
It's overall, I think it's, like on a toughness schedule, a scale of 1 to 10, maybe like a 7. I don't know, maybe an 8. That might be overplaying it a little bit, but it's a long season, right? And you're going to go through stretches, and it's going to ebb and flow, and there's going to be parts where you look at it and you think, oh, here's the soft part, and here's the difficult part. So, in particular, what kind of stands out to you? What did you notice first? Other than, I know you guys said the bye week, but as far as actually playing the games or opponents or the way it was laid out, what stood out to you? What did you kind of notice first, Bo?
That Ravens game right away, right? The Ravens, they picked up some heat. They got Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
They picked up some pretty good guys in the draft. That first game, it's going to be fun. MVP versus Super Bowl MVP. It's going to be a pretty hype game, and then it gives us a pretty like a mini bye week, so to say, right? Some time off for the guys to get that rest for that week 2 game against another tough opponent. So that's what stood out to me is the first 2 weeks. I mean, obviously it was the first 2 1 week, so I've had more time to think about it. But
yeah,
you talk about a 1-2 punch starting off, right? Like it's going to show you where these kind of teams start out at. I mean, it's not fair to say really because like as you said, teams jump around even year to year or even within the same season. But if you're just going off of last year's metrics, these guys, I mean, that's 2 of the hardest games I think you can play starting your schedule. I know that the rest of the schedule gets easier, but those 2 games in particular are pretty difficult to me.
Yeah, I think the silver lining or the bonus of that is you get both those games at home, right? Those are 2 teams that you figure when you go into the season, you look at the AFC contenders, top 3 or 4 or 5 contenders for the Chiefs in the AFC. I think you would put the Ravens, the Bengals, the Bills, maybe the Texans. I don't know. We'll see what they do. They might have a regression coming this year after taking a big leap forward last year. But yeah, getting those 2 games at home to me is big. You're also healthy, which I know you could make that argument for both teams, right? You should be pretty healthy weeks 1 and 2. If you're going to be healthy, you would bet those would be the 2 healthiest weeks. If you're the better team, I think that's more of an advantage. And I feel the Chiefs are the better team than the Ravens and the Bengals. So getting them early at home when you're probably as close to full strength as you're going to be all year, I think helps balance out getting those 2 tough opponents right out the gate. Nick, thoughts on the first 2 games of the season?
I mean, the Bengals have been cold to start the season the last few years. And, look, we do well against the Ravens, the Lamar Jackson Ravens. I don't know if it's because Andy Reid and Harbaugh have that history there where, they like maybe Andy Reid just knows them because they work together. But for whatever reason, we seem to perform well against them. And then, we have the Bengals, Joe Burrow. There's a lot of injury questions. There's, Pat McAfee. They were talking about it, and I forget who's on the show with them, but basically said he lost like half of the flexibility in his wrist with the same surgery, right?
Oh, so right. Yeah, they had to do like a cadaver surgery or something, right?
Yeah. So
replace a tendon.
Right. So there's the question marks there. They kind of have like a historically slow start to the season with Joe Burrow, and then there's also the mini bye week between, right? So we basically have a long week before the Bengals to prepare. So yeah. With that said, I was really surprised that they put those 2 games back to back at the start of the season. You think that the games that stand out are going to be maybe the Texans, the Bills, the Bengals, and the Ravens. I mean, if you're looking at seeding in the conference, and to have half of those games in the first 2 games of the season seems like kind of strange, right? But Scott and I were texting about this. Maybe the NFL is looking at it like, we really want to have Lamar versus Patrick and Burrow versus Patrick. And with those guys' injury history, they've only made it to the end of the season half of the time. So we're going to have those games earlier. I don't know if that thought process enters into their mind at all, but I mean, it was something that I thought, but I mean, that's really where I'm at with it. I think it's favorable for us to have those games earlier in the year, personally.
I mean, our first game last year, though, we didn't have Chris Jones or Travis Kelce, right? One was health. concerns, and the other one was contract negotiations. I mean, man,
Yeah.
week one
we-
seems kind of like a
we
toss
only-
up though.
And we only lost that by 1 point. There was a pick six. It was off of a deflected pass, right? And it was against the team that made it to the conference finals in the NFC. So,
Yeah.
Andy Reid just,
NFC
yeah.
NFC runner-up, Detroit Lions. Yeah, I thought it was a strange selection. I thought they would have saved that matchup for later in the year, right? Like they kind of did that with the Bengals last year. It was like the second or third to last game of the year.
Right.
You've got playoff seeding implications. You're coming down the stretch there, so I kind of expected them to play like the Bucks or the Saints or one of those games maybe first, kind of go down the same road they did last year. With giving the NFC opponent and the Lions. The other thing that kind of made it kind of odd to me, the Ravens week one was, do you really need that? Like that game has a lot of sizzle with being the AFC Championship rematch, quote unquote. Although it's not really a rematch because they don't.
It's also the season opener, right? Like that's the season opening game. Yeah,
so
exactly.
Do you really need to like have that hype matchup right out the gate? People are already gonna be excited and hyped for the game, so it was an odd selection. The first game there. With having both games back to back there, though, it's a little bit surprising. But I was surprised by the Ravens week one. You talk about playoff implications right out of the gate there and possible tiebreakers. Both of those teams are in the same division, though, right? So only one of those teams will really battle because we're presuming the Chiefs are going to win the AFC West again this year. That's where the smart money would be at, and history tells us is going to happen. So. Maybe that downplays the playoff scenario and the tiebreaker scenario a little bit. If you had the Ravens and the Bills right out of the gate or the Ravens and the Texans or something, that might make that a little bit more of a storyline, but it's definitely a storyline. You could be looking at playoff seeding and be tied with one of those two teams at the end of the year and they win their division. And
I don't know if you guys have seen this.
You got the 1 seed or the 2 seed second week of the season, which – I know they like to try to set up these divisional matchups and things like that later in the year for intrigue, but not that the NFL really needs to worry about getting hype, right? Or worry about people being interested in what's going on. But right out of the gate,
dude, I think they do need some hype, right? So like, I'm not trying to like contradict you too much or like debate you even, but like with the new rule change to the kickoff and stuff, right? They have a lot of fans like up in arms, and so I think they're just trying to gather as many as possible. Oh man, I just kind of lost my train of thought there. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. So yeah, this week's poll. I don't know, Nick, if you can jump out of this and go to the poll. Bo hit it right out of the gate here. Those two games were the first ones that were really leaked, right? And so we knew the first two opponents right out of the gate, and so we put the poll out there this week before any of these other games were leaked. I think the San Francisco game and the Bills game got leaked a little bit earlier. But wanted to put our finger on the pulse of Chiefs Kingdom and how they were feeling playing the Ravens and the Bengals here weeks 1 and 2. What I'd like to get the chat's opinion on this. If you're not following us on any of the social medias over there on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it now, Facebook, Instagram, at Chiefs Kingdom Live. This week's poll, what's the record after those first two games? And Bo, you said that stood out to you first when you looked at the schedule. What are you thinking the Chiefs are sitting there after those two games?
I voted in this poll. I'm one of those 248 votes. Thank you, everybody who voted in this. It's awesome. Great question, by the way. I was one of the more moderate guys. I selected 1 and 1 just because, like I said, I feel like week 1 is just such a toss-up, especially with us. Like as Nick pointed out, last year we lost by 1 point to like a really fluke turnover, and it's just kind of, I don't know. There's just something about the Ravens, the hype, opening day. There's so much tension against us. I can in the media, everybody just, with Taylor Swift coming on board and all of her fans coming, everybody's just kind of like talking shit a little bit. We saw it during the Tom Brady roast for no reason. He just calls out the Chiefs, oh, okay, so we're those people now, right? So there's just so much against us that like I just feel like, like there's just something that could happen to where like in the moment guys just whoop, ball goes the other way or something. So I picked 1-1. I would love to be the super optimist and go 2-0 like 79% of people here, but
right.
I don't know. I guess I'm just too much of a pessimist. I went 1-1.
Yeah, the GOAT's realizing his GOAT status is in jeopardy with Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
That dig there at the roast was all about. He's looking at it saying, man, this dude's ahead of me. If you're Tom Brady, getting sidetracked a little bit here, you've got to be thinking that like your greatness is never going to be matched. And then literally 1 or 2 years after you retire, some guy comes along and is already outpacing you to be the greatest of all time. But that's a whole other story. Like I said, I'm getting a little diverted off the topic here, but I think Chiefs are going 2-0. I think they are looking at this schedule and they're seeing the road games there at the end, which we'll get to here in a bit when we get back to talking about the actual schedule. I think they realize how important it is to get a hot start, home field advantage. They're going to be prepared, and they are circling those two games, and they are going to do everything that they can or everything that they need to do to be 100% ready to win both of those games. And I think the Chiefs are the better team. Chiefs went into the Ravens' own stadium in the championship game last night, beat them. The Chiefs have had their troubles with the Bengals in the regular season, but those games were all on the road, right? This one's at home. Joe Burrow is coming off the surgery. Chiefs took care of the Bengals at home last year to clinch the playoff berth, and I know Burrow was out in that game, but if you look at some of the numbers that quarterback was putting up, the backup in the Bengals, he was playing damn near as good as Joe Burrow was.
What was his name? Like Browning or something like that?
Yeah, Jake Browning, I believe, pretty sure his name was. But I'm feeling really confident Chiefs are starting 2-0 in those two games. Just like I said, coming into the beginning of the season, having all that time to prepare, put together the game plan, throw the kitchen sink at them, catch them off guard. They're healthier and they're the better team. They got the better roster. So being healthy and being early in the year is an advantage. Knowing the importance of this potential seeding in the playoffs later in the year, that has their direct attention at this point. And I think that's going to be priority one, coming out and getting those two wins. Nick, what do you think?
Well, you can see that I selected 2-0 because that's my account here that's pulled up. So, I mean, look, everything you said. Also, I think the Chiefs set the record for the most consecutive 4-0 starts a few years back. They haven't done that in a couple of years, but if you look at kind of the success of Andy Reid and scheming in the off season, right? The Chiefs historically do so well with him after a bye, and the off season is like the longest bye that you could possibly have, right? So I just think that they come with fresh stuff every year that people then take and then they have to digest, and you see people start copying some of the things that we've done. And I just think that we're going to come in, and this team is motivated, right? We've talked about this. They didn't sit for 5 minutes after they won their second Super Bowl in a row without going, all right, man, we got to get a third one.
Right? It's almost like they weren't even enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, it was. You watch everything, and that is their focus. And they're together.
They're on the stage as the Super Bowl trophy's coming out, going, all right, we're going for 3, guys. Yeah, so that's the mission. That's the goal. They're chasing down history. They're like Patrick's chasing down Brady. They've got people taking shots at him in roasts where none of them are even present, right? So they feel it. They're looking at this schedule that, I'll pop this back up now. I mean, they're looking at the schedule and they're looking at December and they're saying, I play on the 8th, the 15th, the 21st, and the 25th, right? I mean, that 15th, 21st, 25th is brutal there in the month of December when you have 12 games in a row. So they know that they've got to make hay while the sun shines earlier in the season, I think. That said, one of the things that I don't think we brought up, and maybe I missed it when I was reading comments, but I mean, is Rashee Rice going to play? Is he going to be there? That could be a huge factor in those games, not having, the guy that was our best receiver down the stretch. So
Is he going to play? Can Hollywood Brown overcome, and step into this difficult offensive scheme and produce? Maybe the answer there as to whether or not they excel. But I think historically, you look at how Andy Reid's teams have performed early in the season, since he's been in KC at least, and they do exceedingly well unless they have weird circumstances happen. So that's what I'm going for, is 2-0.
Yeah, the Rashee Rice storyline and throwing that in, that as a factor, is interesting. Definitely isn't going to help. This team has shown, though, they can go a week or two without Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill, some of these guys in the past, right, and patch it together and find a way to win. So would you rather have Rashee Rice playing those games? Yeah. Like you said, he was the Chiefs' best wide receiver coming down the stretch last year. Might have to lean on the rookie a little bit more than the new guy, right? Brown and Worthy coming out the gates there with the guns blazing against these two AFC contenders here. But yeah, Nick, what kind of stood out to you when you first looked at this schedule?
I mean, I think that I kind of saw it on X or whatever before. So the thing that stood out the most to me was just that stretch where we play Nico's. Hey, Nico, we see in the comments there, bro. Nico's Browns on the 15th. And then
I'm
the
20 in Cleveland for that game. Bet on that.
Yeah. Then the 21st, we play the Texans. And then the 25th, we play the Steelers. That seems like a pretty tough road there in December, right? In December, like that's going to be a test right there at the, almost to finish out the season. We have the week 18 versus the Broncos there, either the 4th or the 5th. But I mean, that's probably the thing that stood out to me the most. One of the other things, if you look at this, I mean, we've got the primetime kickoff game, Sunday Night Football, Monday night. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 primetime games listed there. I know that the Christmas Day game isn't in primetime, but I mean,
neither is the Black Friday game, but it's not a regularly scheduled.
Yeah, but it's a standalone game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like all the bright lights. Early bye week, long stretch there, short rests. I mean, they built this schedule for back-to-back champs. I think they were like, if we're gonna have the first team in history to three-peat, they're gonna have to fucking earn it. And that's really what stood out to me when I saw the schedule.
Bo, what are your thoughts about that stretch there at the end Nick was just talking about? What do you think about it?
Yeah, the thing that stood out to me the most was just that they're away games, right? Not to echo all of Nick's points, right? Not only are they brutal opponents, it's at the end of our season, so our guys are a little depleted on energy, and we have a little bit of older guys in key positions. But just away games in cold places I think all those are open stadiums, right? Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Denver, open air stadiums in Denver. Just away games and cold. That was my concern. Just can we survive that 3 weeks? Health is always such a big concern, especially going into the last 3 weeks of any season. That was what really stood out to me. It was just those. Just I don't know. It just seems strange. Nick's points about all the primetime games. It's like 6. We saw that kind of last year, right? I think we had 6 or 7, and then like a couple of them got flexed out. I think we kind of can anticipate that happening again when they realize the scheduling here. 3 games in 10 days, 8 primetime games for the Chiefs. You're just going to get people complaining that they're always on kind of stuff, especially when they're standalone games, like you pointed out. I could anticipate some flex games going on there at the end a little bit, but yeah, that away schedule is just such a huge advantage for the other teams. I feel like, I mean, not that Mahomes can't travel and win. We've seen him do that now. It's not even a topic of discussion anymore. Can Mahomes win away? But it's still brutal. I love the advantage you get going into Arrowhead. It's rocking. The players love it too. You can tell that they just have a different vibe when they're playing at home. So yeah. What about you?
Kind of just to jump on a little bit and Nick's comment here about 3 of the last 4 being on the road. 2 of those 3, you talked about being in 3 games in 11 days, right? 2 of those were on the road, and all of those were playoff teams from last year. The Browns, the Texans, and the Steelers. Steelers were the 7 seed, so I've joked on here before that I don't really consider the 7th seed a playoff team.
They're still tough, though, December.
The
game.
Steelers, they brought in the quarterback from the Bears, Justin Fields. The Browns will be going back to Deshaun Watson. They kind of caught fire and had mad lightning in a bottle, right? With the whole Joe Flacco out of nowhere thing last year, rode that into the playoffs. So
do you call it debacle, or like what do you call it? Because he did so well and then just failed so miserably. Like, what do you call that? 7-game stint he had.
Yeah. So yeah, the 3 out of the last 4 stood out to me, but the fact that 3 of those 4 are those last 4 games, with 3 of them being on the road and 2 of those road games being in that 3-game stretch in 11 days stood out to me. But the other thing I guess kind of stood out to me when I first looked at it was when you look at the tougher opponents, right? Ravens, you get that game at home. The Bengals, you get that game at home. The Texans, you get that game at home. The Bills are really the only contender out of the other top 3 or 4 teams in the AFC that we play this year. And they're the only one we play on the road, right?
Yeah.
So,
and they made the most interesting moves during the offseason. They got rid of their receiving core, right? And
right.
Yeah. Are they the same team even?
They got MVS, bro.
Yeah. And so when you look at that, and then also the road, although Patrick Mahomes has actually showed he plays better on the road somehow, it seems like, with his yards per game and some of his records and stuff he's done. But road games are supposed to be the toughest in the NFL, right? And I mean, you're playing the Panthers on the road. I mean, you get the Raiders on the road, right? So the Steelers, the 7-seed Steelers from last year, you get them on the road. The Buccaneers are another team that they won that NFC South. You get them at home in a primetime game. So I like the balance of home and away games, and the tougher teams being more at Arrowhead, and maybe the not so tough teams that you would think you get to play those, kind of get those on the road, which makes that balance out a little bit. So, I mean, what do you guys think about home and road opponents? You agree with me there, or you see that a little bit differently, Nick?
First of all, I saw Kevin was asking if you were going to the game. I guess he's local up there, so.
Yeah, no, our man Nico, we've been talking for a couple of years about getting up there and meeting those guys from the locker room rant, and they're all Ohioans and Browns. Well, John V is obviously not a Browns fan, but Nico's a Browns fan. They live in that area, so yeah, we'll have to hook up with our man Kevin, making it up there. I'm making the Carolina game and the Browns game this year. It's happening, both those games. So
we'll see what the program
didn't really do
places
me a whole
me
lot
for
of
December.
favors putting those games within 3 or 4 weeks of each other there. But go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
No, as far as home and away, selfishly, I just kind of look at the schedule and I'm like, okay, what teams can I get to see this year that I haven't already seen?
Right.
And I'm like, damn, dude, I've seen the Bills play like 7 times.
Oh, that must suck.
Right? I mean, they're playing in Buffalo, right? But like that's the way I look at it, right? Is I'm like, oh man, I've seen the Bills play like a ton, or I've seen this team play a ton. Like I've seen the Texans, right? Scotty,
at this point, it's probably a shorter list to list who you guys haven't seen than who you have seen play.
That's a
You've
zero
seen
list.
everybody though, right?
Nick, you haven't seen all 31 teams yet?
Fuck you, Scott.
A little humble brag there. I've seen every team in person. I haven't been to every stadium, obviously, but I've seen every NFL team in person. So
I went to 5 or 4 games last year.
Hey, Bo, you're catching up, man. Hey, Bo, I'll tell you, you went to some badass games. The Raiders game, maybe not so much the Christmas game, but
that was so fun
there.
I had great seats for that game.
Yeah, you saw some good ones. So
yeah. So, but as far as the opponents, I kind of look at it the opposite, where it's almost like we do better on the road. So it seems like if we're going to lose to some of these good teams, has been at Arrowhead, unfortunately. But I don't know. The only thing the one that sticks out to me is we're playing in San Francisco this year. I think that's going to be a really tough game. That team
Yeah, I mean,
is
wasn't
sick
tough a couple
losing
years
to
ago.
us. Huh?
Wasn't tough a couple years ago. Chiefs have owned the 49ers. Patrick Mahomes, what, 5-0 against that team?
I know, but that's what I mean. That like they got
Right, John B.
You know, do we have the sound drop from the Broncos player? They got to be feeling like that dude. Hold on, let me see if I can find it here.
I got you. I'll get it. Keep going.
Yeah. So here you go.
Sick of losing to the Chiefs.
There you go.
I'm sick of losing to the Chiefs.
I mean, that's got to be them. So
That's the whole
yeah, I mean,
NFL.
that's
God,
that's
it sounds
the
like
NFL.
B. I feel like I
That's
hear myself when you play that. That's so weird sometimes.
The Carolina game, I was stoked that was going to be in Carolina. I don't know if I'll be able to make it, but I would like to go. I know our man JT's out there.
Oh, you got to make that game, man.
Yeah. Yeah, but other than that, I mean, you know, I'm glad that we're opening up the season against two premier AFC opponents, and they're both at home. That's probably the thing that I was most excited about from the home and away game standpoint. Joseph?
Well, what do you think about my thoughts on getting the
Sure.
tougher opponents at home and maybe playing some of the easier opponents on the road?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, especially with those first two games, right? It's kind of like the obvious, just like, well, those two teams stand out and the Titans too. We just have some anomalies on the road. Like Nick pointed out, the Niners, right? That's obviously going to be a tough one, but I'm still kind of struck at like, who are the Bills going to be this year? I'm looking at the Browns, like they're always kind of tough, but I don't feel like the Steelers and the Broncos or the Chargers have gotten any better. Chargers got a new coach, but I mean, they really haven't improved anywhere. They've got rid of some key players as well. I mean, I just feel like, yeah, I agree with you in the sense that all of our tougher opponents are definitely going to be at home. But I'm not saying we have a cakewalk on the road by any means either. We were kind of talking before we went live, Scott and I, were about teams jumping up every year. And I was thinking the Panthers, they can't be as terrible as they were last year. I mean, they could be worse. I mean, there's always that possibility. But like, I mean, you just got to think that a team with the same quarterback and same OC and same coach is going to be a little bit or get better year to year. At least that's the plan for them. And so like, I don't know, there's just some anomalies in there. So I just don't know what to think of those teams, but definitely would agree that our home schedule looks really fun. I kind of feel bad for you guys that like our last couple of games are divisional games and we should have that division wrapped up by week 14, right? So those last couple of games, just like, anybody need tickets? I got some tickets.
Yeah, I'm looking at these home games and trying to figure out which games I'm going to. I'd like to go to that Bucks game. That's Monday Night Football, right?
Depending on where the program places me, we'll see what games I can make it to. I'm going to try to make it some again this year.
Yeah. The Steelers is interesting to me. Maybe let's look at the schedule here and pick a game or two that like we find the most intriguing, other than maybe like the obvious Ravens week 1 or something, you know. That Steelers game to me, I know I was just joking about them being the 7th seed last year and not being a real playoff team. I'm curious to see what Mike Tomlin does with Justin Fields. If he could kind of unlock that guy and play to his strengths. Like Justin Fields went to the Bears, and the Bears are just not a good organization, right? Cover your ears, Ron, if you're watching right now. But they also haven't had quarterbacks since Big Ben left, right? They were rolling out Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett and some of these guys.
Bro. Yeah.
So look, if Justin Fields is kind of just needing a better situation and a better coach and some better personnel around him, you know, maybe that's a tougher game than it looks like here. Christmas Day road game. I remember the last time the Chiefs played out the Steelers, Patrick Mahomes threw 6 touchdown passes in that game. So that game intrigues me. If you're in the chat right now, what game kind of catches your eye here, other than, like I said, maybe some of the more obvious ones, like maybe that Bills road game or the Ravens week 1? One of you guys, Nick, Bo, I don't know which one of you wants to go first. Maybe a game there that's not an obvious stunner.
Yeah, sure, dude. Sure.
That you got your eye on?
Yeah, for me, dude, it's like it's not a game. I kind of just alluded to it with my last little rant. It's that week 10, week 11, week 12 stretch where we got Denver, Buffalo, Panthers. The reason I mentioned Denver is just because, God, like, as much as we do own them, we're like, what, 16-1 against them, they now have that little spark, right? And that's kind of like sometimes all that it takes. And it's, divisional games are always just divisional games. But I can't get my head around yet what the Bills and the Panthers are going to be this year. And so like that's like kind of like we were even talking about. I even alluded that's the cold spot in our metaphorical burrito here. Where it's like I was thinking like, oh, that's going to be interesting to bite into. The Bills got rid of all of their wide receivers. I don't even know if they're a contender anymore. We almost took them out in like week, I can't remember what it was, 11 last year, week 12 last year. And then they had a crazy rally and won 6 games in a row, right? So, like, I mean, without that same offense, I don't know if that's the same team. And then I kind of already talked about the Panthers. So those are the 2 games I have my eye on this season for sure.
Nick?
I'm kind of interested to see week 4 against the Chargers. Like, what are the Chargers going to be, right? Are they going to be the same overhyped preseason team again this year? Or are they actually going to get a competent head coach in there with a good quarterback and figure some things out and actually challenge us for the division this year? I think that game is going to be really telling for the rest of the season as far as how tough is it going to be to win the AFC West
on the road.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. We've never lost there, so I'm not that worried about
Right.
the road factor. But yeah, I just think that's going to be because I don't think anybody's expecting much out of the Raiders this year, right? Are they still going to be rolling with
John C is? John C says they're scarier than who? The Donkeys? Is that who you're saying they're scarier than?
Yeah.
The Raiders just still don't have a quarterback, do they?
Well, see, that's the thing. So the Broncos drafted a quarterback, but they got like the 6th best quarterback in the draft, right? So did they hit? Did they just get lucky and hit? Or the Raiders, are they going to be better?
I will say about that, the Broncos and Bo Nix, Justin Herbert was an Oregon quarterback that a lot of people thought maybe was a system quarterback and didn't have a whole lot of hype and was not like the first or the second quarterback taken in his draft class. And he turned out to be pretty good. So
he got his job
the
from
Bo
a
Nix
punctured
thing, I think,
lung,
has
though.
a chance of being better than people expect it to. Now, with that said, the Broncos were in rebuild fire sale mode and got rid of like Justin Simmons and Jerry Jeudy and a bunch of their really good players. So I think they're a net negative from where they were at last year, even if Bo Nix comes in and is better. But go ahead.
Yeah, so that was just what stood out. One of the other things I saw that is going to be kind of weird, if not just, interesting as well, is that I think that week 7 game against the 49ers is going to be on Fox, and that's going to be announced with Tom Brady, since he's going to be announcing on Fox. So I'll have to figure out what the over-under is on the amount of times they ask him about, either beating Patrick or if he thinks Patrick can challenge, his 7 Super Bowls during the broadcast.
Oh man, that you'd have to find a pretty good number. I bet you Vegas has a prop bet on that somewhere. I bet like in the teens somewhere. It's got to be, right?
Yeah.
What would you think?
Probably, if I had to set a number, I'd say 5.
Oh, I'd pick the over on 5 easily. There's so much dead time and so much dead space they fill in those games.
Yeah, especially when we're up like by 3 touchdowns in the 4th quarter.
Right. Yeah.
John C's not watching, is he? Or John B's not watching. Sorry, John C's on.
No, if John B's watching, he hasn't said anything, but
steaming in his chairs. It's okay, John B. You can comment if you're watching, buddy.
Yeah. I don't know. That game was Big Doug. That game was more about the Chiefs not having focus and overlooking the Raiders and playing the worst game that they played all year. Probably playing the worst game that they played in the last 2 or 3 years, if we're honest. They were awful in that game.
Right.
They were terrible. I mean, they did everything you could do to lose that game and still had a chance to come down there at the end and steal it. So, John C's asking about John V here.
He's in prison, dude.
No, dude, he's too busy working, trying to buy new appliances after that Super Bowl loss.
Right. Yeah, he's paying. He's working a second job to pay off the Best Buy credit card. No,
we'll see him again.
John V
That
runs
dude
a
owes me
family
some
business.
spicy wings. We'll see him again. I haven't
Right.
forgot.
Right. John V owns and runs a family business, a small family business. So he's a busy man. I'm hoping they can get the locker room rant going back up here at sometime this year. But
Yeah, Nico
Me
used to
too.
watch
Come on,
second
Tony.
I miss watching that show on Tuesdays. That was a lot of fun. It was a good time. But maybe it'll come back. Maybe anybody else there in the chat got their eye on a game.
Brenda brought up the fact that we play San Francisco, then the Raiders back to back, and how their defenses just try to crush our quarterback regardless of the play. Right? They literally try to hurt Mahomes every play. So that should be an interesting stretch to look out for.
Yeah. Another game that kind of stands out to me a little bit. I know I was talking trash on the NFC South, but the Falcons got Kirk Cousins. Drafted some other players. That might be a tougher game than you thought. Look, I mean, Kirk Cousins, you can laugh all you want. God, I wish I should have bookmarked. I should have bookmarked it on X. If you go back and look at Kirk Cousins' numbers versus Joe Burrow's numbers since Joe Burrow entered the league, Kirk Cousins like beating him in almost all of them. It's not even close.
What's the numbers of a quarter? What are quarterback's numbers coming off of an Achilles rupture?
Look, man, I get it. Like you guys coming off injury, but Falcons were a doormat team last year.
He's our age,
might not be a doormat.
He's not a spring chicken anymore.
Like kind of like you were saying, the Panthers, like they got to be better than last year, right? I think you could look at that Falcons game, and that might be a game where
they decide to go with their number one draft pick after that
last season. That maybe isn't as easy of a win as you thought. That's the point I'm trying to get to with. Do they play Kirk Cousins? Oh, that's a night game. Never mind, because Kirk Cousins can't play.
Oh, if it's prime time.
Yeah,
I have one for us here. All right, so every year there's teams that don't perform right how we thought. I mean, kind of going off what you're saying about the Falcons, and then teams that kind of come out of nowhere and it's a tougher game than you thought. So pick one game on here that looks tough, that's not going to be tough, and a game that doesn't look tough that you think is going to be tough.
Well, I just kind of gave you my game I thought was good with the Falcons.
Sure.
I think that's a game that I think should be easy, that might not be easy.
That's a good question, man. Dang, that's a good question.
I mean, I don't know. You guys got any there? I can see the Texans having a regression, right? Like
that's
sometimes when you see that team go from being bad to better than you thought, they kind of take a step or two back in before they really start taking off and have like a good run there. So I'll go Texans. I can see that being a game at home that looks tough. Texans got smoked by the Ravens in that playoff game. They got run out of the building. So I'm going to go Texans as my game that could be tough, or that you think is going to be a hard game that maybe won't be as hard as you thought.
Those are good picks. The tough game for me that I think doesn't appear to be tough, even though I already said it already might be tough, is that San Francisco game. I still feel like they are in quarterback controversy hell, right? Imagine they come out their first two games and lose their first two games, even though we kind of know like that's not really a determinant of the full season. The scrutiny and the pressure and the amount of just weight that will come down on Brock Purdy's shoulders again, I just don't know if that will be surmountable the way he did it last year. So, I mean, for me, that could be a game that looks tough that might not be so tough. A game that doesn't look so tough, I've already said it 2 or 3 times in this podcast, that might be tough, is that Panthers game. I think that might be a trap game where people look at it and go like, oh, they didn't improve too much, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, practice makes perfect. Consistency matters. They have the same guys again. So, I mean, that might be like the trap game for me in this scenario there.
You don't have to pander to JT, man. I don't think he's watching right now.
Oh, I'm not pandering to JT. I just can't see them being that worse. And I feel like that would be one of the perfect teams that were just like, for no reason, dog shit last year, and they should have been better. And like,
don't do that to him, though. Like, hope only causes pain.
I mean,
when your team
yeah, look, dude, they got Bryce.
Historically,
Young.
I'm terrible at picks, so yeah, maybe I am dooming
They
the
got
Panthers this year.
they got Bryce Young at quarterback, who struggled more than I expected his rookie year, but a lot of rookies have that struggle that first year. It's
Yeah.
tough transition to the NFL. Got him some playmakers maybe there. So yeah, no, I could see them being a little bit better. I don't think that's going to be tough, but it'd be tougher than you think. Nick, you asked the question, so you probably got a couple in mind, don't you?
Yeah.
Don't take John
So
C's. I see John C's in the chat. Don't you take
I know
this.
I don't think anybody's really looking at that week 9 against Tampa thinking it's going to be a tough game. I think Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback, and I think that's a game that people are probably kind of skipping over. And we know they're a playoff team last year, but I think that's going to be a tough game for us. And I'm agreeing that I think the Texans are, maybe a team that they achieved, really highly last year for a rookie quarterback, but there's that kind of that sophomore year. There's going to be more tape on the quarterback, and then they also imported, a guy into their locker room by a trade that,
kind of a pain in the ass.
Kind of a pain in the ass, and maybe not be one a sophomore quarterback. So I'm gonna pick those two games. Oh, Brenda. I mean, I thought this one too. The Bengals are saying they're going to be tough, but it's not going to be. I mean,
yeah, that news about Joe Burrow.
We could boat race the Bengals in week 2. They come out and don't look good to start the season. So
they lost Joe Mixon. They lost Tyler Boyd.
Yep.
T.
They're
Higgins
still
is
in
not
negotiations
happy.
with T. Higgins. Yeah, right.
Hendrickson, that defensive lineman, is unhappy. There could be some turmoil on that team. Slow start. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I thought about going there, but I just feel like Joe Burrow is more established as a quarterback in this league than C.J. Stroud at this point. So that's kind of why I lean Texans. But yeah, I could see the Bengals.
Who's going to be the Bengals running back this year? Do you know?
I don't.
I guess I have the internet right here at my
Doesn't matter.
fingertips. I could look that up.
Yeah, no, I look at those games, and like I said, maybe that Steelers game is a game that I was joking about them not being that great. And they got Justin Fields, the Bears. You're taking Bears scraps, you're in bad shape usually, but such a fun thing. The Bills game too. You look at that on the road, that could be a tough game. They won the division. They were the 2 seed last year. They were a couple plays away from. And I predicted them kind of be the team to fall off, right? I thought would regress. And I was looking pretty smart up until about the last month of the season. And then they went on a run and won out and made the playoffs with the 2 seed. So was that close to nailing that prediction? But
it says Zach Moss is going to be the Bengals running back this year. Do you guys remember Zach Moss? Who's Zach Moss? Why am I not? Why's that not
Zach Moss, he's a guy that was on the Colts, right? He got drafted by who did Zach Moss get drafted by? Oh, he was a guy that came out of college, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, this is the sleeper number 1 running back in this draft class," and pick him in your dynasty league, and all of a sudden, he has not panned out at all.
They also got Mike Gesicki from the Dolphins at tight end now.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Mike
Gesicki
is a guy that he flashes for 2 or 3 games a season. But other than that, he's an average to below average tight end.
For sure. I would say average, but like definitely top 15 or in the 15 range, 16 range, somewhere there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I said it before. I feel like that info on Joe Burrow's hand is, I mean, man, that week 1 game, whoever the Bengals play, is super interesting, right? To see if that affects him at all.
Yeah, last year he threw 5 interceptions in the first game against the Steelers or something like that, and they got their ass kicked.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and he had a calf injury. That wasn't even his throwing arm, right? It was his foot or his leg.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes won the Super Bowl on a basically broken ankle. Yeah, God, that'd be awesome. I mean, I hope Brenda's right. If we kick the Bengals' ass and run them out of the building week 2.
That would really set a tone, right?
There was a post. There was a post on X that we reposted that was funny as hell. It says, guys, find a girl that holds on to you like the Bengals hold on to that 2021 season. And I laughed so fucking hard at that. I want to say like a couple days, I was still thinking back to that and laughing.
Brushing your teeth and laughing at it
It's
the next
true.
morning.
Outside of that one season, that team has really not accomplished much. Now, a couple of years of those were because Burrow injuries, but it happens, right? The guy gets hurt, and they have not been able to shore up that offensive line and protect him. They've tried the last couple of years, spent money and draft picks on the O-line, and it hasn't worked. So,
So John C.
anything else
brought
about
this
the
up
schedule you
earlier.
guys want to?
Yeah, for sure. John C. brought this up earlier. I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm not sure like jinx anything or do a commentator's curse, but he threw it out on the docket, so I feel like it's out there. Is an undefeated season on the table?
I don't think so.
Didn't you pick undefeated or 2 years ago or last year? Which year? You picked undefeated 1 year.
Yeah, I did.
Recently.
I think I picked one loss.
Not last year. I think it might have been 2 years ago. I thought you went undefeated. Maybe you did 19 or
I think I had like 16-1. I have to go back and look. That might have been before last year. I didn't think the schedule was that tough last year, honestly. This schedule is a lot tougher than last year's, I think. Anybody disagree with that?
What were the numbers of that? Like you mentioned the strength of schedule numbers earlier. Like this is in the like lower half,
close
like
to the same.
right
It
at
was
half.
they were like right around 18 or 19 or 20, something like that. I want to say.
I feel like last year was a little bit more difficult than this, but I mean it's all speculative anyway. But yeah, I feel like a little tougher last year. And I could agree with that.
I think it's a tougher schedule. Look, I'm not going to say yes. I think it's always on the table when you got the guys that we have if they can put it together, you know. And maybe that's just wishful thinking. I mean, I think that the one thing that could definitely catapult Patrick Mahomes over Tom Brady is if he completed an undefeated season and three-peated at the same time. I mean, that would be like
you wouldn't even need to get 7 rings at that point. That would be it.
Any fan, but yeah, I don't necessarily think so.
Yeah, well, we usually wait until we've gone through training camp to get closer to the regular season to do our division winners and wild card playoff picture, like preseason predictions. But I mean, just looking at this off the top of your head, what do you think record-wise? How many losses do you think people are looking at with this schedule?
Trying to think of what I said last year.
We're not. This isn't like etched. This isn't set in stone or anything like that. Like,
it is, dude. It's going on the internet. It's there forever.
When we do our season kickoff show, and we kind of do, like I said, when we predict who we think the division winners will be, and who the wild card teams are, and who we think the championship games and the Super Bowl is, we'll do our final. There's so much that can happen, but with like free agents and injuries and whatnot, and the off season and training camp and preseason leading up to the actual regular season. But just for fun here, I'd be interested to see what people in the chat have to say too. How many losses? What do you think? How you feeling record wise for the schedule, Nick?
3. Oh, Nick.
14-3. That's what I'm going with too. Yep.
Bo was just talking about how tough this schedule was, and it was tougher than last year's and all this. And he's like, "Oh, there's only 3 losses on there."
We have a better offense now. I said 4 last year.
14-3, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm with you, dude. I feel like
I was thinking 13-4.
13-4.
I was thinking 13-4. I think you can get tripped up in a divisional game. I think you could get tripped up in one of these first 2-3 games against like the Chargers and the Bengals and the Ravens.
So you have 2 losses in the first 4 games?
No. What I'm saying is, like, I think you've got a division loss somewhere in there, which could come in that first 4 games, maybe like Chargers on the road or something. And then you're looking at maybe a loss between the Ravens, the Bengals, the Bills, and the Texans. So there's 2. Maybe you trip up, like, I don't know, one of these. this hellacious stretch here, like you lose at the Browns or something like that. And then maybe you're not even playing week 18 or something. You're sitting starters. So yeah, I'm looking at 4 losses.
I like that 4th loss being a week 18 sitting your starter loss. See, I think we'll be there, but I still feel like we'll get that win on week 18. The Broncos are in such scramble mode, man. They are in rebuilding season. Like I'm going to put them on par with the Bears. But I agree with you. One of the first 2 games, we kind of already talked about that, right? I feel like that could be a toss-up, and we could incur a loss there, whether or not.
And if it's not that week 18 game that's not important, maybe it's like one of these NFC South teams, right? I mean, you don't sweep that division.
Right.
Maybe you lose to the Falcons.
And that's where I was going to say one of mine comes from, like a
So-
trap game, right? Like the Falcons or the Panthers or one of the, like the Saints, even like one of those games where you're just like thinking like, okay, this should be fun. And it just doesn't turn out to be so fun at all. One of those lot O experiences, right? Or lot L experiences. And then like a random divisional game. That's where my 3 are coming from, right? Just like those are the 3. But I feel like we have our shit together. We should have our shit together. I feel like our offense. I mean, man, I feel like I was hyped last year about our offense, but I feel like our offense drastically improved with reliable and consistent weapons. Not necessarily maybe all-stars, but guys you can count on to catch the goddamn ball
Just
and
catch
not
the
drop
ball.
it or exactly.
Not
The
line
guys
up
that can do their
offside.
job. Whether or not that's enough to like offset the loss we incurred on defense in losing Snead and some other guys, that's kind of yet to be seen. But I always have trust in our defensive staff coaching younger guys in those positions, so I'm not too worried about that end of the ball. So
Brenda's got us going down to the Ravens and the Texans. I don't like those losses at home. I sure hope that ain't. I sure hope Brenda's not right there. That could be playoff. Although it doesn't really matter.
Raiders.
You just have to go on the road in the playoffs. I mean, they proved last year that don't matter. Like this,
And maybe they'll try to do it as a 4 seed this year.
right? We've already won the Super Bowl as the 1, the 2, and 3 seed. Now we're gonna go Chiefs Slam or whatever. Like
This
they
shit is
call
getting
the
boring.
golf stuff or the tennis stuff, right? It's like the slams. So I don't know. You can only win 1 championship a year in football. So, yeah. Again, this isn't set in stone. I want to see like what happens in training camp and what some of these rookies look like. And how about the Bills going from Stephon Diggs to MVS, bro? Like that is some like, ugh, man, woo. That's going the wrong direction.
Oof. I know that feeling. That's how it felt when like we lost Tyreek, right? Just we did what?
Yeah, they don't have Patrick Mahomes though. Josh Allen is not Patrick Mahomes. That's been proven to be true.
Agreed, 100%. That's not.
Yeah, no, Brenda, I got you. They could be possible. Our Chiefs could come out. I mean, they lost to the Lions at home last year, week 1. They could lose to the Ravens at home. That's not impossible.
Yeah.
But I mean, I expect them. Like I said, I'm feeling like 85% confident Chiefs win those first 2 games. For all the reasons I stated earlier in the show. But any other schedule questions or anything you guys want to? I think we've kind of gone through this thing. I don't think the bye week 6 is as bad as everybody's saying. I mean, you always hear a lot of people say week 8 is perfect bye, right? Like it's right in the middle of the season. You're only a couple weeks before that. You're getting the bye before the Niners, which is your toughest road game. Anybody already? That's the toughest road game for the Chiefs, right at 49ers. That's not really
right. Yeah.
So I mean, you get a bye week before that game. I'm not wild about it. I would rather it be later in the year, like week 9, week 10. But week 6 isn't terrible. It's not week 4 or 5, right? I mean,
what is week 5 the earliest bye week? What is the earliest bye week?
I think week 5 is usually the earliest they start on that.
It's just, I don't know. I just look at week 18 as a fan, and I like, people rest them for the playoffs, anticipating that, or they rest players for anticipating a playoff run. But you also see it in the players' just overall like explosiveness. I definitely remember seeing Chris Jones like week 18, second half of game, or not week 18, week 17, second half of games. absolutely depleted. So I can't help but feel right that like if you do have that rest more in the middle or later of the season, that end of the season tends to be just a little bit easier as far as endurance wise. But I'm with you, right? Like these guys are professionals. All they do is eat, breathe, sleep, and train every day. So it's just like it shouldn't be that big of a thing for them, I don't think.
Right. I don't know if anybody else got any more questions about the schedule. John C. Something about Rice 5-game suspension. I think Rice is getting more than 5 games myself.
I did see something about that. Judge said, or kind of cleared him in that new accusation at the nightclub, or not the judge, the owner of the club.
It came out that he was a suspect, and then there was people said that he didn't do nothing, but then there was some stuff that came out later that was more negative again. So I don't know what's going on. I mean, if it comes out they got video or they prove or whatever that he did assault somebody while he was already, he's going to be looking at a lot of games.
Yeah, I think they said they didn't have surveillance video from that time.
Oh, that's good. That's
Might
probably
be
good
one
for
of the
him.
deals.
I guess a good or bad, depending on if you did it or not. Right? I don't know if it's
right.
Video's good if you didn't do anything, bad if you did do something. So, yeah, I sure hope he's back by that San Francisco game. I mean, man, if he's looking at 8 games or something like that, and then maybe they knock it down to 7 or 8, but Rashee Rice, you just need to stay at home, bro, for the next several months, man. Like
Xbox, PlayStation, my man.
You got your whole
get
life
into
to party. Or just get the homies at the house and hang out. Get your friends over at the pad and kick it. You don't need to go out to the club, man, and rent Lamborghinis and shit.
Just hire us as your personal drivers. We'll drive you anywhere, anytime. Let's do it.
Hey, I'm sober 100% of the time. I'll pick you up and drive you anywhere you want to go, bro.
Hey, man, buy some bombs. Yeah.
Yeah. Road games we're going to this year. We didn't get to one last year.
That Cleveland game looks intriguing.
Cleveland game, yeah, that looks interesting. I've got to get to that Carolina game. I've been wanting to get out to that part of the country. Charlotte, North Carolina, I hear is a badass place anyway. Later in the year, a little bit warmer maybe than here that time of year. So yeah, I'm definitely
maybe Cleveland in December isn't such an intriguing outlook.
It has a chance to be pretty cold and miserable, but
can't be minus 30.
Yeah, definitely hitting that Carolina game. I need to hit that Cleveland. I got to get up there to meet John and Nick and these guys and our man Tony. So, anything else you guys want to get to, or we're about an hour here? I think we've dissected this stuff here down.
I'm pretty good.
I got something.
What's that?
All right, hold on.
All right, I'll go get another drink. Be right back.
Yeah, that's good advice, John C. Stay under 70 miles an hour. Probably good advice. Nick's bringing up the post here.
180,000 views on X for this post, so I thought we should talk about it.
Yeah, no. Put this out here. What was that, last week?
May 10th, best day of the year, baby.
That was on your birthday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
If Alex Smith would have had last year's defense in his last couple seasons with the Chiefs, he would have won a Super Bowl. It's funny, if you go through the replies to that, 90% of the people that were hateful or talked trash or whatever, like they misread the tweet.
Missed the point. They missed the point.
They missed entirely. The point. Here's them, and like here's the point. Like it went way over. After about 25 people replying to him, trying to explain it to him, I finally just muted the conversation because my phone was blowing the fuck up. And I was just like, I mean, is it not written? Is that not clear what I meant? I mean, is it that hard to understand? I didn't think that it was. I also didn't think that it was that controversial. Like Alex Smith, his last year here especially, he was the #1 rated passer in the NFL. He had Tyreek Hill. He had prime Travis Kelce. He had Kareem Hunt, the rushing leader in the NFL that year. If he would have had last year's defense in that season, or even the season before them, that the Chiefs were still really good, I feel that team could have carried, that defense from last year could have carried one of those two teams to the Super Bowl. I mean, do you guys disagree? You agree? I mean, what? I mean, I know it's a hypothetical, but hypotheticals are fun to think about, right?
No, yeah, that was a great question. When you sent that through in our text, like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" I said, "I love it. I don't agree with it, but I love it because I knew exactly. Like, you definitely ruffled some feathers in the Chiefs kingdom with this one, man. It was
And again,
great.
but it was people that thought I meant if Alex Smith was on the team last year. If you go through
Yeah,
the
right,
replies, it's
right.
like there's no way Alex Smith leads that overtime drive in the Super Bowl. I'm like, bro, I'm not. That's not what I said at all. Like, learn to
It
read.
was it was funny to enjoy it because I first took it as this like incredible nod to the defense, right? Like,
Right.
man, you
That's
give any
exactly what
team
it
that
was.
defense, you give any most quarterbacks that defense, they're gonna go win a Super Bowl, right? And where people took it was just beyond me, and like just how the internet reacts. Dude, the internet's undefeated. They're always so hilarious, right? And like
Well,
it's
not only that, it's still Twitter, right? It's still
exactly. It's still Twitter. It's
people will
still
scroll past 25 tweets that they like and agree with and not like it or comment or anything. And then one tweet they disagree with that they misread, especially.
they'll
It's
write a
just here comes
dissertation
like,
telling
oh,
you why you're
I mean,
wrong
look,
about a
it got a
hypothetical
like,
situation.
I mean, it got almost as much. If you look at the likes and the comments, those 104 comments and retweets, there was a lot of people that agreed with it and understood it. So it wasn't like it was every person hating on it. I mean, it was pretty even. I would say close to even as far as people that liked it and agreed with it and people that hated it and disagreed with it. But yeah, there were some people that were like, "This is the worst Chiefs account out there," and all this shit. I was like,
It's like, whoops,
dying laughing.
sorry, I said something.
It's like somebody I've never even seen comment or like a tweet ever from us, like or interact with us ever. But
It's a good entertaining hypothetical, right? Because we were talking about this before we went on air again. That's almost like the dream team in football. Last year's defense with the offense we had with Alex Smith and his last year, obviously Mahomes isn't in that picture, right? Everybody that's commenting, keyboard warriors, we
I'm not saying
know
we should have
we
kept.
know that Mahomes isn't Smith and vice versa. Smith isn't Mahomes. It's not.
Right.
We're saying like, look at what that team could have been, right? And like, man, that would have been so fun to watch something like that. Like I'm still so bitter that we got rid of Kareem Hunt, especially when you look at like what other players do and the allegations around the league and stuff. And the reason we had to get rid of him was a little soft in my opinion. We could have that conversation some other time, but
there's
man,
no
he
way
was so good.
There's no way the Chiefs lose the playoff game against the Titans with that defense that year. And there's no way they lose that game against the Steelers where the Steelers didn't score a touchdown.
See, so like the crazy hypothetical to that, I'll just play devil's advocate for the internet right now, right? Is what you were saying is like there's no way you go down 24 points against the Titans, right? And I feel like the internet would argue like, okay, but let's say you did go down 24 points against the Titans. Alex Smith might not be the quarterback bringing you back from that big of a deficit, whereas Mahomes is that guy. But that's like
they were never
different.
No, they were up against the Titans. No, the Chiefs were up against.
All right,
the
excuse me. I'm thinking.
You're thinking of the Texans game with Mahomes.
The Texans. That's what I'm thinking of. I'm sorry.
That's
the Texans,
a different year and different quarterback.
Out of you.
Right.
Well,
I don't think there's any way the Chiefs
you're saying,
will
Scotty,
lose either of those playoff games with that defense. Do you, Nick?
No, I mean I don't. Here's what I think you were saying is that I think we all agree that Alex Smith was not a great quarterback, but an above average quarterback, right?
Yes.
Right.
Do we believe
that
to
win a Super Bowl with an elite defense?
Yeah. Do you think that the Chiefs, well, not just an elite defense, they were an elite unit. They were top 2 in points, right? And yards. But do you believe that they were like, where would you rank their playoff performance this past postseason historically?
Oh, dude, up there.
Like top 5?
I mean, the Dolphins were
it was the hardest schedule, right?
The Dolphins were one of the most explosive, hottest offenses in the league last year, and they held them to 7 points.
7 points. The
cool.
Ravens were blowing people's doors off, right? Blowing people's doors off.
The Ravens smoked the 49ers in San Francisco by like 20-something.
Yep.
Led by the league MVP, right?
Right.
10 points, right? So
and the Chiefs
I would say that
points.
they're probably like a top 5 all-time playoff defense performance-wise.
Yeah, no, that defense.
So what you're saying is that an above-average quarterback, with a top 5 all-time playoff defense. I don't think that's like that controversial.
No. And Nick, you have an interesting take on why it got as much negativity as it did.
Which one was that? You'll have to remind me. Because
Alex
people hate Alex Smith.
Right. I don't understand it.
Yeah,
People
no,
act like, oh, Alex AS11 strong and the injury he went through, and thank you, Alex, for raising Mahomes or whatever you want to call it, and thank you for bringing us back to relevancy.
They ran this dude out. They ran that dude out of town on a rail when it was time to trade him. Yeah,
right.
I remember. I was here. Yeah, look, there is like this.
The guy was good, man.
This kind of hatred of what he didn't do for the city instead of like an appreciation for what he did for the city. I think that kind of got washed away when he got injured, and people saw how horrific that was, and they had that special about his recovery and stuff. But I think now it's been long enough, and you can see it here that. I mean, people really did not like him. They did not think they didn't even think he was like an above average player. They didn't think he was a good quarterback, right? For the most part. Or at least the people that responded on Twitter.
Right.
So
and people brought up the year that he went without throwing a touchdown pass to a wide receiver. And I'm like, go look at the wide receivers on the team that year. You had your best receiver was Dwayne Bowe in his last year.
Dwayne Bowe. Yeah,
Dwayne Bowe couldn't even stick on the Browns the next year. That's how bad Dwayne Bowe was at that point in his career. Like, they had nobody. They had Jason Avant or something like that on that team. I mean, those receivers sucked on that team that year. And people were bringing that up, and I was like, well, I didn't say if he had that defense in 2014, like his second year here when he had no offensive weapons. And people were like, oh, well, he had elite defenses. Look, Alex Smith, the defenses his last 2 years with the Chiefs, once he finally had weapons on offense,
they were Bob Sutton.
They might have been top 10 or I want to say his second to last year. They were 7th in points given up, but they were like 22nd in yards allowed. And then the following year, they were 15th in points and like 27th in yards allowed. They were basically the Bob Sutton defenses that got him fired after Patrick Mahomes' first year, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Right, exactly.
So it was so funny. The people that brought all this stuff up that was just completely irrelevant to the point I was trying to make, or was just it just was like factually incorrect. Like, well, they had an elite defense. They were 7th in points. Well, first of all, 7th in points isn't an elite defense. Like, you're not even top 5. But show me an elite defense that was ranked 22nd or 27th in yards given up. Like, yards aren't the whole story, right? It's points is what wins and loses games. But if your defense can't get off the field and give your offense more opportunities to score, you don't have an elite defense if you're ranked 5th from the bottom.
Yeah, the defense blow a 28-point lead, right?
Right. Bend don't break is elite.
Yeah.
No, it's not elite.
No, it doesn't, because it doesn't give you enough possessions, right? Like So that's the thing that I remember from that
Steelers playoff game
is that it was just like, and Le'Veon Bell runs for another 6 yards, and he runs for another 4 yards, and they just ran the ball.
Sidebar real quick, Brenda. Yeah. What do you mean Madden has a 49ers be like a Madden simulation has them beating them?
Yep.
Well, at least they can beat us somewhere.
Yeah.
Give them the Madden trophy.
Virtual in VR. That'll work.
Right. Give them one of those NFT
hang the banner
trophies or whatever.
But I mean, I think what would solidify your point even more is like, look what Russell Wilson did with his defense in Seattle the year they won a Super Bowl. Right? Was it their offense? Right. No, it was their defense, right? When Russell Wilson had all the weapons, a la DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, the running back Carson, right? Like, he had all the weapons and didn't do shit, right? And so it's like, yeah, man, it's a nod to the defense and what they can do with I gotta hate using Russell Wilson because he fell off so hard. But when he first got in here, he was no joke, right? Like, he was good, athletic, mobile, out. He could evade pressure, right? And he was decent. Good. He wasn't the best, but like
he was good. He wasn't like all-time great, but he was good. So
AI also, which AI? ChatGPT? Am I missing all this? I need to get in the AI.
No, yeah, I've seen those going around too, like the AI stuff with the Bengals and the Bills. And can you bring up the post? Can you bring up
chat with my friend, the script writers, and say, hey guys, what's going on?
Hold on, let me see if I did it.
I don't like what this is doing here.
You're talking about the one that I made, Scotty?
I don't know, maybe. I mean, I've seen a bunch of them going around online, but are you able to bring up the post on X? It was like, which one of these teams that's never won a Super Bowl wins a Super Bowl first?
Did you respond to it with that GIF of the Bengals and the Bills fighting?
Yeah,
right?
it was like Bengals and Bills fans in the comments. Like,
Let me see if I can find it here.
it wasn't that long ago, but yeah, man, the Bills and Bengals fans for being ringless talk a lot of shit. Like,
Do we see a Super Bowl banner hung up in the Bills stadium this year?
no, I think that got taken down. I think someone was like,
Dude, I would love that fucking banner so much.
let's
Hang
go
that
ahead and
up
take that
to
down.
my-
I'll put it up right here in between Travis and Tyreek on the wall here.
Well, between you ruffling the feathers of Chiefs Kingdom here, there was a lot of replies since you posted that GIF. I'm trying to find it. Oh man!
While you're trying to find it, we were talking about AI. I was playing with the group, my daughters, with Chat GPT and making a bunch of stuff, and so I started making some other stuff. So I took the Bills crying fan, and I asked them to make it into a Renaissance painting. And I thought that the
Yeah, you have to zoom in probably a little bit, but
yeah, let me see if I can, dude. I thought that it was. Oh my
Yeah,
god!
zoom in and then just scroll up and down.
It won't let me do anything but like this. Hold on.
we'll
We
drag
need
it up.
to
There you go.
we need to get that framed. That's so good.
Dude, I mean I want that like hanging in my house.
The name of that painting is Wide Right.
Or the Korean translation. Remember those guys? I have them somewhere. That audio clip. Oh, no, that's not a Messiah.
Yeah, no, that shit was funny as hell.
Here it is. Whatever you say that.
Right.
John C. Dude, I had to.
Found
Oh,
it.
dude.
Let's see. How do I do this?
I don't know.
If you guys don't have Chat GPT, it's worth
There
it,
it
worth the
is.
download just to play with it.
Is that the one you're talking
yeah.
about? Right there?
Yeah. So if you go to the post down there, I don't know if you can see it on your screen, it's kind of small, but they put this thing out, NFL franchises with no Super Bowl titles. And so then we put in in the comments, like the Bengals and the Bills fans are like fighting over who's going to win one first. Like,
All keyboard warriors right there.
oh, ringless. So funny. But hey, they beat us in that one AFC Championship game 3 years ago. So, and then lost to the Rams. Fucking Matthew Stafford's old ass in the Super Bowl. Chiefs would have kicked the Rams' ass in that Super Bowl that year. God, could you imagine if the Chiefs would have won that Super Bowl too? What we'd be looking at right now? Holy shit! The three-peat. Before we get out of here, the three-peat, does that cement the greatest NFL dynasty of all time?
Yes.
This year. I mean, you'd be looking at 4 Super Bowls in 6 years with a three-peat, another Super Bowl appearance in there, against the Bucs that they lost. When you factor in that it's the expanded playoff field and it's free agency and it's salary cap era,
And
there's
17
no
games.
other NFL dynasty that's done that, right? I mean, I know the Steelers, they went back to back and then took a year off and then went back. They won 4 in 5 years. That was back before there was 32 teams, right? And that was back before they had free agency and all this shit. So like you could have super teams a lot easier than what the Chiefs have done with free agency and the salary cap. I think that makes the Chiefs the greatest dynasty in NFL history. You guys agree, disagree with that?
It definitely bolsters our argument for it. I don't know if it cements it though, right? I mean, because there's this weird metric of Brady has 7 rings, right? So like Nick was pointing out, if you get the
but those were
undefeated
spaced out,
season
like,
and the three-peat, I know what you're saying. Yeah. I
that
know.
was 10 years
so, I
in
mean,
between. The Patriots really had like 2 kind of mini dynasties or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that. But like, does it cement it, right? So like, I don't know, because there's always gonna be that little argument, and then there's another little caveat that Brady beat Mahomes. I always hate that, right? That's like those are like the 2 arguments I struggle with in public when people bring that up.
Yeah,
It's
but
like,
he didn't beat him with the
yeah.
Patriots in the Super Bowl. Like,
Nobody beat him in the
I
AFC
think that-
Championship
I
game
think that
thanks
our
to D
competition,
Ford.
though, like you look at the competition just in the AFC
right.
with Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, right? We had Deshaun Watson.
'Cause
in
it
there.
was
He's
it was
fallen off.
Brady and Manning, right? Was it?
Brady,
in the
Manning,
AFC?
and Big Ben there for a little bit, but
Yeah,
he
Big Ben.
didn't
That's a good.
seriously contend.
You guys
I mean,
looking at Eli? Come on, Big Eli. I'm joking, guys. I'm joking.
No, yeah, I got you. I was reading the
Eli.
comments.
Real sidebar. We're talking about Tom Brady's roast real quick. Did you guys see Eli's Twitter post about that? He's like, I didn't go to Tom Brady's roast because I've already roasted him 2 times already.
Oh, yeah, that was
I'm just like, yeah, Eli, get in there, buddy. Love it.
Dude, they went hard in that
They
roast.
didn't like the Bill Belichick where he was roasting him was funny as hell because Bill Belichick's usually like, yeah, we came out and we played well, and we got to like not turn the ball over as much next time, and we gotta do this better. Like,
he's normally
total
not taking
boring
shots at tequila
monotone
on
right
stage
after every game, and like when the media people would ask him a question he wouldn't like, he just like give him that stare, and he'd be like, well, this next question, right? Just no personality, whatever. And then he's up there roasting Tom Brady, just fucking blasting him. And it was so funny, like the jokes he was making. Oh, shit.
Yeah, it was good. It was good to see that side of him for sure.
Ron Burgundy
Toasting Bob
introduced him,
Kraft.
and he's like, "Oh, thanks, Ron. You're the only member of the media I respect."
Right. Yeah. It's so funny. Like you've heard that Bill Belichick is funny behind closed doors, right? And like outside of football when he's not in front of the media. But
could you imagine the scrutiny you would face if you're a head coach in the NFL if you got in front of a press conference and said something like the shit I say sometimes, drinking beer and shit? Just like, what did you just say? You're doing what?
Yeah, I say stuff all the time that I probably shouldn't, but Dolphins only 16-0. Yeah, but that was only one season though. Like they didn't win the Super Bowl the next year. You know what I mean? Or I just think when you look at what like a three-peat would mean, man, like Nick mentioned, the level of competition and all the different factors that these other dynasties the Cowboys didn't have to deal with, right? The Steelers, the Packers back when football first started, just how few teams there were, right? And the merger. So
and it's been almost 6 years of Super Bowls and nobody's ever done it.
Right. Right.
Oh man, John C, you're so right. I watched a highlight of when Chris Jones roughed Tom Brady, hit him like with his hand in the shoulder pad, and they call. Oh man.
Well, hit him in the face mask, and it's like, no, he didn't. His hand missed his face mask. Like,
not at all. Clearly missed. I don't know if that's worse than him like saying something to Matt Ryan and getting a foul. Like I don't know which one's just like blatantly, obviously like not a foul, but both of them, I guess.
Right. It's gonna be fun, and we know the road now to the three-peat. And
let's go! I'm excited.
Dude, it won't be long now. It's middle of May. Shit, dude, it's middle of May. So, dude, it's May 15th today. You got June, and then you'll be into July, and you'll have training camp be starting, and then August and September you'll be having preseason games, and then the season starts. Like it's gonna be here quick, man. Looking forward to it. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We're working on trying to get some more followers of the show. If we could get some subscribers here on YouTube and kind of get us over this hump we've kind of gotten in here, this mid 500s, we can get that sucker up to 1,000 before the season starts. Get some dough rolling in on this. We could do some bigger, better giveaways. But we got giveaways planned, and we're gonna do some stuff I think here coming up and try to grow the show.
Signed memorabilia? Who knows?
So yeah, I mean, if So if you can help spread the word, you're talking to your friends or telling family members or Chiefs fans, take their phone and be like, hey, go subscribe to this channel. That would help. Tell everybody you can about it. We really appreciate everybody in the chat. As always, you all are the OGs that have been with us since day one. Brenda and John C. and Big Doug and the whole gang and Laney and some of the newer comers. We love you guys all. Makes being a
Definitely
Chiefs
appreciate
fan
you guys. Laney,
so much
hope you
more
get better.
fun. So, yeah. Laney's having the same surgeon do her wrist that Joe Burrow had, I heard, in the offseason. So, hope you heal up quick, Laney. Got to give her a little bit of a hard time there, but we love you and we're praying for you. Happy late Mother's Day, even though we told you Happy Mother's Day on Mother's Day. But
I didn't. Happy Mother's Day.
The mom of CKL, I guess you could maybe say, one of the moms of CKL. So, really appreciate it. We're going to be back next week, and maybe we'll talk some more about this schedule. Maybe there'll be some developments. Maybe there'll be some Rashee Rice news. Maybe there'll be some player news. Who knows? But thanks again. Really appreciate everybody for watching. Until next time, let's go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs!
Touchdowns in one game.